Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in again. Here we are again with another updates, news, features, all the latest related to your Google Home, your Google Home Mini, and all the Google Assistant related devices. Now, this week's updates are heavily featured on Google Assistant and everything that is the latest with that great voice assistant. The first thing this week, Google has released a large number of new updates that will work on your Google Home and your Google Assistant. Now, the first thing, and probably my favorite thing, is the interaction with phones and alarms. So, if you have an Android device, this is especially useful. If you have an iPhone, this is not going to work for you, but you can go ahead and within the Android Alarms application, if you already have this update, you're able to now set off routines based on that alarm. And what's really nice about this feature is you can set those routines to actually go off once you actually get up. So if you're continuing to hit the snooze button, then your routine is not going to trigger. If you actually get up or dismiss that alarm, then it will trigger your routine. So you can set a lot of things to go off at that moment. Another thing that's integrated here between all these devices, if I have all of these in my home, obviously I can broadcast to all of them, and that's been a capability for a long time. But what hasn't been possible for everyone is the ability to go between your phone on your Google Assistant to your home and back and forth. So what's great about this new feature coming from Google here, you can broadcast to your home, and then if someone responds to you, which they're going to be capable of doing, it will come to your phone and be in the Google Assistant app. So basically you're going to get a transcription of what was said back to you. Something that I think has been lacking for a long time is the alarms here. And we talked about the new alarm routine functionality, but really we've only been able to use a few sounds, actually I've only been able to use one sound here with my Google Home since the inception of alarms and timers with these devices. Now, what you are going to get here are some character alarms. So we've already seen some for children, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here. They're coming out as character-based alarms for you to set with your children, and obviously in the future they're going to expand the list of characters and people that you'll be able to essentially wake up to if you don't already use the music alarm feature. Another phone capable automation here, or something you're capable of doing if you have Android devices, is silencing all the phones in your home. So you can now ask your Google Assistant or Google Home to go ahead and silence those phones. Of course, they have to be Android, and you have to have this update, which is not yet out as you're watching this video. But the other thing, or a couple of things that have actually triggered, we've talked about them in previous updates, the Roku integration with Google Home is now live. You can go ahead and get that. You're also able to change your podcast speed, so you can just ask it to play faster or slower if you're listening to a podcast on your Google Home or Google Assistant enabled device. Speaking of updates here that we've talked about in the past, the Chromecast is now, and this isn't Chromecast audio, this is Chromecast. The first and second generation devices are getting updates to the point where you can include them in multi-room audio. So this is something I talked about a few weeks ago, that it was likely coming, and then it was actually just a rumor, but those updates are now being rolled out. I still can't do it. I'm still waiting for my update, but you need to be a part of the preview program in order to get it right now. But if you have that setting set up in your Google Home application, then you are able to get that update, and it is rolling out to certain individuals now. This is pretty interesting stuff. On iOS, we talked about all this great Android integration at the start of the video here, but on iOS, Google Assistant's really struggled, and Google is using Apple's technology against them at this point, and they've gone ahead and with the latest update to Google Assistant, you can now call up through Siri and Siri shortcuts. You can now call up your Google Assistant. And what's really great about this is if you've been using Siri, you're going to also be able to trigger routines that you've set up in the Google Home application. So your devices don't necessarily have to be HomeKit enabled, and this brings the two platforms together in a really great way. And I think, in general, Siri has been much improved, but it is still not on the level of the Google Assistant in terms of its capabilities. One of our subscribers here, Antonio, actually reached out to me and he wanted to let me know that Brazilian Portuguese is now available on Google Homes all over the place. So, we're seeing those languages that were promised actually rolling out, and he showed me his device and his settings already available. So Brazilian Portuguese, and I've been asked about this a lot on the channel. When is it coming? When is it coming? It's there now. If you don't have it, make sure your Google Home is as updated as possible. Speaking of languages, Google is always improving which languages are available on their Google Assistant and their Google Home. They obviously want to become completely, across the world. Now, they haven't announced all of these languages that I'm about to give you, but there are a ton of new languages that have been found through xdadevelopers.com. If you haven't checked out that site, go ahead, check them out. It's really interesting stuff to me, and it's how I find some of this really, really new stuff that's coming for you guys. These are people who go into the code and they figure out what's going on. Now, what they've actually done here is they've gone and looked through the code and they've come up with all of these new languages. So I have them up on the screen, but just to give you an idea, there's a couple of different dialects of Arabic. There's a number of different versions of English, Spanish. There's an incredible amount of Indian languages coming here as well. So you can see the massive growth. Again, none of these have been announced, but they're all there in the latest APK of the Google Assistant app. A couple new things related to your older Pixel devices. So if you own a Pixel or a Pixel 2, you now have the ability to screen calls, or you're going to have the ability to use Google Assistant to screen calls. So this is the first component of Google Duplex rolling out to some of these older phones. On top of that, we've seen digital well-being show up in the Google Home suite of products and the Google Home app. You're also able to get that on those older Pixel devices. So digital well-being and the ability to screen phones using your Google Assistant on your older Pixel devices. This year at one of Google's events here where they unleash or show you a number of the new products that are coming, there was a lot there that was related to the Google Assistant, and LG, they announced the whole XBoom series of products, and XBoom all had the Google Assistant on board, and they finally released or are in the process of releasing the XBoom. It's the AI ThinQ WK9, so crazy name that I'm hoping to not have to say 1,000 times here on the channel. It's an 8-inch smart display with the same version or the same operating system, really, Android things here, that these devices have, the Lenovo Smart Display and the Google Home Hub. So its real focus, though, is on sound quality. It's obviously going to have a lot of the great features, if not all of the great features that these have, but it's really focused on sound quality, and it's going to retail for around $300. So that's obviously a lot more pricey than, say, a $150 Google Home Hub or a $200 Lenovo Smart Display. Now, what struck me about all of these updates this week is the fact that Google continues to intersect their products and features. We're seeing all the growth on the Pixel devices and the Google Assistant growing and getting better in comparison to, say, an iOS device. So Google is really giving you a reason to fully join their system in a number of ways. And I think that's what we're seeing. And, actually one of our subscribers here left that as a comment in the channel, Yes, that's what's going on. Google is integrating their services and capabilities. And so it's not just okay to talk about the Google Home anymore. We have to talk about the integration of Google Home with all of the various Google related devices. So there you have it. That's it for this week, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll, of course, see you next time. Here come the links.